essentially I'm just writing fan fiction, which is a great way to help keep you inspired, honestly. I mean, if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend it. Hey friends, today I want to take a minute to talk about probably one of the biggest soul crushers for authors and writers out there, especially for me, definitely for me. I want to sit down and discuss writer's block, specifically how I deal with it and the methods that I use to get through it and past it. But I also kind of want to talk about what it is in general and the impact that it has on our community. This is a topic that is widely discussed. Pretty much any author will tell you that they have experienced writer's block at some time. And it kind of fascinates me that as much as we talk about this in the community, in the writing community, nobody really wants to admit when they have it. I can't tell you the horror that I experience when someone asks me how my writing is going or how my next book is going, and I know that I have block and I haven't written in weeks. It will really impact my mental health. And I think this is because writer's block carries with it a lot of internalized shame. And shame is something that thrives on solitude. We tend to cling to this idea that when we get writer's block and we're unable to get something out on the page, get words out on the page, that disqualifies us from being a writer. And it really doesn't. It's a part of the process as a whole. Now, if the past year has taught me anything, it's that what works for me doesn't necessarily work for everyone. So I want to preface this video by saying, take what serves you and leave what doesn't. Make sure that you study your own habits and your own patterns and really are honest with yourself about what works for you. And this is my first real piece of advice for you, is to not let shame win, right? Shame is something that I said thrives on solitude. If you don't actually tell people what you're going through, it just kind of makes the situation worse. And it really shouldn't, because writer's block is a natural part of the process. We can't remain inspired 100% of the time. Creativity just doesn't work that way, as much as I wish that it would, honestly. And if you can't bring yourself to tell other people about your writer's block and the shame that comes along with that, at least make an effort to tell yourself and be honest with yourself. Whenever I struggle with this, I make sure to carve out a little time for self-care. The very first thing that I want to do is ask myself, okay, what is actually causing this block? Is it because I don't have any actual ideas, or is it some type of emotional issue that I'm not working through? Is it fear? More often than not, it's the third one. Fear is such a huge motivator, or demotivator, I guess, for me when it comes to getting word count out and coming up with new ideas and feeling creative. So it's something that I really work on every day to accept as part of the creative process, because you can't pretend like fear doesn't exist. So I've learned to stop, do a little bit of self-care, figure out what's bothering me and work through it. But a lot of the time we can't just sit around and wait for bad feelings to pass or wait for inspiration to strike. As any writer worth their salt knows, you can't just sit around and wait for the muse to arise. Otherwise, you're never gonna get a full book done. This profession and this skill takes a lot of actual perseverance. You need to figure out what works for you in terms of keeping your train rolling. You don't want to lose momentum. That is the most important part. So if you have excellent habits set in place that serve you, that you enjoy, and that you can follow through with, focusing on those will help get you from one point of inspiration to another. And that is really what will keep it driving so that you can finish the entirety of your project. You know, writing 100,000 words, 120 plus thousand words, and keeping everything coherent and as artistically integral as possible, it's not easy. It takes a lot of perseverance to just keep going. You've just got to commit to that process. And that is how you're going to see it through. Even when you're experiencing periods of block, you can really lean into those habits that you've established to get you through that until the next moment of inspiration strikes. So I think it's important to talk about the practical things that I personally do to get through writer's block. The very first thing that I will really lean hard into is writing exercises. I do have a certain habit that I start each writing day with, where I will read some of my favorite authors, maybe a couple chapters. I'll read some poetry, kind of get into the groove of things. I might copy out a couple paragraphs. It kind of gets me in the mood. I kind of consider these warm-ups for my day, and oftentimes while I'm continuing to do that, that will help get my gears flowing so I don't encounter any type of block or fear once I sit down in front of that computer and start writing. Some of the writing exercises I rely on, this would be something like writing dialogue scenes. I particularly love dialogue. I love to read it. I love to write it. I think I'm pretty good at writing it. So I will kind of just lean straight into that. I'll take some of my favorite characters from the book I'm working on and just let them fly, I'll just let them have a whole conversation and write it almost like a script, just dialogue to dialogue, so I can get the feel for that. And just having fun in that way will help inspire me to get past any type of blockage I'm experiencing. And sometimes if that's not working, I'll take major characters from other books or movies or TV shows that I love, and I will work on dialogue with them. So essentially, I'm just writing fan fiction, which is a great way to help keep you inspired, honestly. I mean, if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend it. The next element that I really love to do, and I work this into my daily habit, is to take advice from other writers or teachers that I respect. And this takes the form often of books. I have a lot of books on craft. I like to always be reading at least one book on craft at a time. And I will allow myself to read these slowly. It's not like I'm trying to whip these out as quickly as possible. Sometimes I'll just read half a chapter or a chapter a night, and I'll make sure to highlight and take notes as I'm going along. It just kind of keeps the idea of the craft itself in my head, so I'm not getting too wound up in the artistic muse inspiration flow. I'm actually reading practical advice from people that I feel like have gone before me, or teachers or professors that are experts in helping you figure out how to keep going. And this is just something I work into my daily life. But if I'm experiencing block, I will lean even harder into this and reread ones that I love. Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert is probably one of my favorites. It just really helps get me through any type of doubt or fear that I'm experiencing and helps me embrace writing as an art. Sometimes I will try and do a guided meditation. I am a huge fan of meditation, and my imagination has always been really vibrant and alive. So often I will sit down, use my Calm app, and get into a kind of Zen state, and then I will invite my characters into my head, and I just kind of follow them around. I might put them in a scenario or wait for them to tell me what they want to do, and it's a great way to kind of get the juices flowing outside of the plot that I'm working on, because a lot of times those constraints that I'm working with might cause some blockages, or I can't figure out how to get around certain things. And this is an excellent way to really almost lucid daydream and invite the characters into my head and just kind of have a conversation with them, let them figure out their stuff together, and I'll just kind of follow them around until something strikes, and then I'll pull up the computer, write it down. And more often than not, this method has saved me a lot of the time. Another one of my favorites that I know I've mentioned before is working with a whiteboard. I really feel like it's freeing. I can just shoot the shit and figure out what I'm gonna be doing on the whiteboard. I can erase it. It's kind of fun. I used to love writing on whiteboards when I was a kid. I think there's some type of freedom in it. So I will pull out the whiteboard, make charts and notes, and if they are important, sometimes I get places, I'll just take a picture of it, and then I have all of the notes that I was working on. If I don't have my whiteboard, it's just as easy to use a notebook as well. I'll do the same exact thing. It's really just free writing. sometimes I just write snippets of dialogue, or I'll just let my mind fly and write out relationships, figure out how they're going in the book itself. And this is a great way to lead me out of the darkness and get me inspired, because it's all about letting my imagination fly on the page itself. And finally, sometimes we just kind of need to take a break, you know? Self-care is an integral part to getting past writer's block. I will make myself a cup of tea and sit on the couch, maybe enjoy nature. I might go for a hike or do some yoga, maybe go for a walk. Anything to kind of get out of my head. I think a lot of times writer's block is just me getting in the way of myself. So taking a step back, honoring myself with some self-compassion, and letting go of that intense hold that I have on this art form, it releases something. And I think it's as important, if not more so, than all of the other practical elements that I use and tools that I use to get past writer's block. Creativity is a part of who I am. And I think sometimes if I just relax that grip, that death grip that I have on this piece of work that I'm trying to create, it allows that creativity to freely move more easily than ever before. And it's so important in order to keep going for the amount of time that it takes to churn out an entire book. I try and give myself grace and space and self-compassion and understanding throughout the whole process so that I don't lose momentum and I don't lose traction. And this is something that I try and impart in every aspect of my life. If I have a firm understanding of myself and compassion for myself and the habits that serve me, those elements will help carry me through any of the blocked times that I may experience. And it takes away a lot of that fear. It becomes much less scary for me knowing that I have these elements to rely on and fall back on when I experience times where my creativity feels dried up or I feel like I have nothing to say or write. If you have any other ways that you like to get through writer's block when it hits you, please let me know in the comments below. I would love to see what other people are doing and get more ideas to add to my routine. If you liked any of the ideas I suggested, let me know too. I'm always excited to hear what other writers are doing, and I think, sharing our experiences is one of the more powerful ways to make sure that something like writer's block doesn't fully incapacitate you forever. If you like this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the new videos that I'll be putting out. And thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you around next time. Bye!